Welcome everyone to episode 12 of Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown. This will be our Brodown episode where we'll be discussing the Pokemon spin-off games. See which one comes out on top. Just as a quick recap, the three games in this category that we discussed in the three prior episodes were Pokemon Go, Pokemon Trading Card Game, and Pokemon Snap. We had lively discussions the last three episodes. We encourage you to go back and listen to those so you have an idea of what we're talking about. You can get those wherever you get your podcasts. You can also link to them through our website at brothersandbossbattles.com. For those that don't know, the way the show works in general is that we discuss three video games in a particular genre or category, talk about all the essentials of those games, and then we have our Brodown episode. And in those Brodown episodes, we have a bunch of categories, and we compare the three games up against each other to see which one should come out on top. I'm Anthony, and my brothers Pete and Tom are here. We are the brothers in Brothers and Boss Battles. We're hoping for a good Brodown episode today.
Ready, fight.
All right, well, why don't we get going with our categories? We have on our list here the first being the controls/camera of these three games. So anyone want to start off with their comparisons on this to maybe get the ball rolling?
I'll start. So the only one that I really had a kind of major complaint with in this category would have been Pokemon Snap. I felt that the controls were tricky at times. And I think part of that is because it's more of a movement-based game than the other two.
And it's on N64.
Yeah, that doesn't help. So yeah, like it's really the only game that requires precision, I would say. I mean, I guess you can make the argument that tossing the Pokeballs in Pokemon Go also requires precision, but
yeah, but that you're using your finger on, so
yeah,
it's like being a PC gamer playing a shooting game. You
yeah,
kind of have like a built-in advantage.
yeah. So yeah, so I think I think we could probably all agree on Pokemon Snap being at the bottom of that list.
I guess, but I didn't really think it was bad, to be honest. I mean, I guess, being forced to pick just because of the other two no issue really with that. Yeah, I guess I agree with that statement, but I really don't think it was a problem. I could go a 1A, 1B, and 1C with these three games as far as the controls are
I think
concerned.
Pokemon Snap. I don't want to imply that it was terrible, but there was a non-negligible, issues I felt with just like the precision of moving the cursor.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty much in agreement with Tom that that would be last. Now in something like Pokemon Go, I do feel like sometimes if you click on a Pokemon, it won't initiate the wild Pokemon screen. Like sometimes you gotta click it a couple of times or it stalls. Like I don't know if that's really controls.
it's probably more like a network latency thing.
Yeah, but are we gonna have a network latency category
No,
in this
I'm just-
Brodown?
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
So, and
I mean, this is sort of a minor criticism, but in Pokemon Go, it kind of was like the time where you'd be walking and it looked like your avatar is sort of just walking in place
Yeah,
and not actually walking. That
Yeah,
that happens.
That's
Again,
almost definitely related to the network latency. But
so Tom, would you classify this is a much higher level discussion, but like just things moving slowly, like so bringing it to a trading card game, like you just find yourself like mashing buttons and going through animations, like what would that fall under? Because to me that's partially related to controls, because like I feel like I don't have control of the speed of the
lack
game.
of control.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it could be gameplay, but yeah, I hear you. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
because
that
those are decisions that the developers made like
Yeah.
consciously to put in like these animations and
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Like,
not
if there's like a slow loading, well, not loading screen, but like
It's like
transition,
text scroll or something.
or
yeah,
like a transition screen between like scenes in the game or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, they can make those as flashy as they want. Sometimes as a developer will choose to make something look cool at the
Yeah.
expense of, snappiness or whatever.
Yeah. I think that a lot of these things are related though. Like, so anyway, I definitely think Pokemon Snap had imperfections. So that's last for me.
Yeah, I
The other
agree.
two is kind of like a toss up, I guess.
What do you think about, and actually maybe this might go into gameplay, but like navigation of the menu and just like how you build a deck in Pokemon trading card game, for example?
yeah. I mean,
Because
that
like that was a little
wasn't great.
clunky.
Yeah, it was certainly clunky, and just having to take cards away from an existing deck to put in another deck just so you could have a competitive deck, against a different type of trainer or whatever. I thought that was annoying. I mean, that I feel if that game was made today, it would have been a little less clunky. But at the end of the day, it had that clunkiness, so we can't really discount that and just say,
Yeah,
"Oh, it's a product of the time."
Yeah, and I definitely feel I had a lack of control over managing my decks.
yeah,
And
yeah. So
yeah, and if we're putting this as control slash camera, I mean, camera in Pokemon Snap, you were able to kind of go 360 degrees.
camera is the whole focus of the game.
Yeah, and I thought they did a good job. But in Pokemon Go, you could kind of look at the whole map around you. I would say the camera is pretty good in that, and you use your camera when you're using the augmented reality to play. So I mean, that's
It's a literal camera.
literal camera on your phone. So yeah, I mean, so I don't
Yeah,
know. It's a tough call, but I mean, I guess I would have to sort of agree by default. Um,
yeah. I think I would probably say again, like these are pretty minor things other than the Pokemon Snap thing that I already called out. But I would say Pokemon Go first, then trading card game, then Snap.
Yeah, probably the same for me. This one's going to be interesting because these three games
oh,
are all quite different,
yeah, they're
different types of
very,
games.
yeah, they all
So it's going
very
to be
are very
interesting breaking it down.
So as we were discussing, all right, and I mean, I'm not gonna object to that ranking for these three games in that category. So let's move on. I noticed as we were discussing that, Pete typed in graphics into the Google Docs that we were using. So let's discuss the
Little
graphics next.
s- behind the scenes sneak peek
Yeah,
as to how we do things here.
last minute and on the fly.
We talked a lot about in the Pokemon Snap episode how that was uh, the first video game experience anyway with the Pokemon in 3D.
Hmm.
Right, it had previously just been the sprites. So that was pretty cool. And the graphics, I think, still hold up today. Like they're pretty darn good
Yeah, I
for
mean,
when
as
the game was released.
right. I mean, as I had mentioned in the Pokemon Snap episode, I played it for the first time in 2024, and I had no issues with the graphics. I thought they were good for considering it was an N64 game, and the Pokemon looked like the Pokemon. They moved well and interestingly. So I like that. You have Pokemon Go. It's got, it's the newest of the games. It's got the power of smartphones behind it. Good graphics there. Had the uniqueness of the augmented reality, as we mentioned, that you could use but didn't have to. And then Pokemon trading card game. I mean, look, technically speaking, it's the worst graphics of the three games, but I I think it did a great job of, being on the smaller system and being released when it was, of sort of bringing the
Yeah, being
the
able to
trick.
recreate
Yeah,
those cards, like the
yeah,
actual physical cards that existed in reality, to be able to recreate those pretty precisely on the Game Boy, I feel like was quite an accomplishment.
yeah. It was great, and otherwise the game looked like the RPG Pokemon mainline games, which is good too. So this is a tough category. We don't always like to discuss graphics because, we sort of pride ourselves on comparing games that aren't necessarily out at the same time when they fit into a particular category. But, and that goes for here, but I do think it was a nice little last minute addition to garner some discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I could echo everything you guys are saying, but I won't 'cause that's boring. Um, the trading card game, I do feel like it gave me some nostalgic, feels, some memories of the trading cards that we had. So that was a good job there, but I still think I'd probably rank that last. Even of course, sort of grading on the curve of
Mhm.
the system and the years. Between Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Go, it's tough.
It's
Yeah, I
It's
feel
a
tough. I
tough
mean,
comparison.
look, I mean, technically speaking, if you're gonna be just sort of technical, Pokemon Go has the best graphics. I mean,
Yeah, but we're not doing that.
yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, I'm putting that out there so people don't
Yeah.
think we're like living
wow.
in a box. But
Yeah, the game that was released,
A Pokemon
you know,
storage box.
what was
yeah,
it, 20
2016.
years,
Yeah,
20 years after the other one. Looks
yeah,
Yeah, I
better.
mean, so Pokemon Go had like the AR stuff, and I don't know if we want to give it credit for that in the graphics or maybe some future category that's going to come up later in the episode. But I don't know. I'll give the nod to Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I will too. It was more groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I feel like all these games were at the like top of their class in terms of graphics at the time
Yeah.
Hmm.
that they were released.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think I'm gonna have to be boring and give it to Pokemon Go if I had to choose. But Tom's statement's a good one. That none of them are bad for the times they were released. So, but I'm going with Pokemon Go as number one. All right. The next category, it's important to games. I think we're probably going to agree, at least with the last place finisher in this category, but the music/sound category. We discussed in the episode how the Pokemon Snap music really wasn't Pokemon-y. That's now an adjective. But uh
Yeah.
but
I, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
Pokemon Snap does get points for having the Professor Oak voice actor, even though his lines are quite limited.
yeah. I'm forgetting now that like word he said. Like it was just like hello or whatever it was.
He would say "wonderful,"
Yeah.
and there were a few other things he would
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And there was other sounds in the game that were fine, but I don't know. I think overall that has to go last for me.
Yeah, and even some of the sounds, like I don't know, like when the Snorlax was dancing,
Hmm.
it
Yeah,
was kind of like oh, like sound that he wouldn't really make.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
and we mentioned the Poke Flute was very much
yeah,
off from
yeah.
shows or prior games or anything like that.
yeah. They could have did a way better job with like the Pokemon noises.
For me, I think I have to give the good nod to Pokemon trading card game. Uh, Pokemon Go just, the music's there, but it just by virtue of the fact that it is a mobile game, you're not really focusing on that. You may even have it audible, or you may have it on your volume when you're playing out in public, but you can't really hear it over, cars or just nature or whatever. And so it just is really diminished in value and importance in that game. And Pokemon trading card game sounded like Pokemon, and it had the music there, and had some pretty good music during some of those battle sequences. So that's my number one.
Yeah, I think that game is actually highly regarded in like the nerd game music community.
Well, I can understand why. Yeah, I agree. There was a couple
Yeah,
of
yeah,
really
that's
good,
good.
good and catchy tunes, and like it's repetitive at times because there's not that many different.
Yeah.
So, but it's still like it doesn't get on. Well, at least it didn't get on my nerves. Like throughout the duration of the game, I was enjoying the music the whole time. So I think we're pretty much in consensus on this one.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, don't worry. There's other categories coming up.
Yeah. Well, what we have next is probably a big one. and it's a exclusive to a category like this, but we want to know how true these games are to Pokemon lore. And this might present itself as the bulk of the discussion, but anyone have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, not to like, not to be boring again, but I feel like they all did a good job at taking elements of Pokemon and incorporating them into these unique kind of, unique games, like unique gameplay that uh, was not part of the original Pokemon, so like non-RPG stuff. But so by that I mean things like, they all had, like these collecting elements to it. Like in Snap, you were collecting, like, or like this gotta catch them all kind of mindset. In Snap, you had to catch them all by taking pictures of them, and then trading card game, you had to catch all the cards. And in Pokemon Go is, obviously catch all the Pokemon, which is, I guess,
The
the most
truest.
the most on brand. But
Yeah. But in Pokemon Go, the way you catch Pokemon's a little shallow.
that's a
Like
Yeah,
good
there's no
point. Yeah,
battling.
right. And then I feel like things that they added where there was this element of battling, like raids and stuff, isn't really like Pokemon. I,
Yeah, you're right. You're
and
right.
it's
uh,
not because it's not like turn-based or anything like that.
yeah, or
Whereas the card game is
But
turn-based.
even and now with like I don't know these mega evolutions and things, maybe it's a little different. But earlier generations of Pokemon, was there ever like real situations where it was like 10 versus 1? You know, like
you know,
Just like in the movie, maybe when they were
yeah,
fighting Mewtwo or something. But yeah,
yeah.
or the Times Square commercial that Pete loved so much.
Oh yeah. I hope you guys went back and watched it.
Um,
So
we
yeah,
should
so
link
there's
we should link to that on our social media or something.
yeah. So there's a lot in Pokemon Go, I guess, now that we're talking that maybe deviated a little bit
Yeah, I
from
think so. I mean,
the true Pokemonism.
it there's two ways I look at it that way. Others might say it also included the most of Pokemon stuff because
yeah, I was gonna
are
say that.
you are truly catching them, and you had Team Rocket, and you had
Yeah, and just
y-
like
different
battling.
Pokeballs and raspberries and all of
Yeah,
that stuff where you don't have that in trading card game or Pokemon Snap.
Yeah, and you
yeah,
have trades and you have gyms and you
yeah.
battle the Pokemon in the gym.
But the trading card game had the clubs, which were essentially gyms.
Yeah, no, but
The
And
that's
trading card game basically copied and pasted and then just changed the
it's
words.
like, let me
You
see
know?
your homework. I was like, okay, but don't make it look too obvious that
Yeah.
that
yeah,
meme. I'm
Instead
not
of
doing it
gyms, it's
justice. But
clubs, and instead of the Elite Four, it's whatever it was. Like
yeah,
the Elite Five. No,
no, it's four and then your
yeah,
rival, just like,
yeah.
yeah. But also the trading card game incorporates like the trainer card, so it has like potions and
hmm
you
Yeah,
know
and the game very
revives and Professor Oak and Bill and all that.
right, and it very much was like the trading cards that came out as well. So
yeah.
I don't know and then Pokemon Snap, had I mean that was sort of a unique element, taking pictures to sort of further your Pokemon research,
Yeah,
but it
but
was a night.
also, sorry,
Yeah.
I I know Tom knows this, maybe you don't, but like that character Todd Snap was in the cartoon and he wanted
Hmm.
to be the Pokemon photographer, so
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah. I didn't.
was very much like a niche part of Pokemon, but it
Hmm.
was very true to
Oh, that is
the
cool.
cartoon at least.
Yeah. I mean, for me, Pokemon Go is last in this category. Even though it had the most, it also had the most fluff, I feel, out of these three games. Um, so I would put it last for that reason. The other two, I mean, look, I don't know if you could get more true to Pokemon than using the actual trading cards that came out because of the Pokemon games and, very similar imaging and very similar moves or the same moves and, potions and Bill and Professor Oak and all of that stuff too. So it's a close call for me with that and Pokemon Snap. But I don't know. I think Pokemon trading card game, just even the look of it, of the RPG looking type of graphics in that game, I don't know. That would probably go number one for me, and then Pokemon Snap, and then Pokemon Go.
I can't argue with that, but I think I have a different order.
So then
For
argue
me,
with it. Gosh darn it.
I can't argue with that, but you're an idiot. I think Pokemon Snap for me is first, and the main reason is because of what I said about matching that small part of the cartoon.
Yeah, I mean
Then,
that's cooler than I think just sort of copying the trading card game. I don't know if it's as true to Pokemon, but I'll give you that it's a cooler little sort of twist on it, especially for a spin-off game. But I don't know that I would agree that it's truer to
yeah,
Pokemon.
and you could also make the argument that like they would never be all those different types of Pokemon in such a small area. You
What do you
know,
mean?
in Pokemon Snap, you're
Oh yeah.
riding along a river for 5 minutes, and you just saw 25 different species of Pokemon, including like, you know, what some rare and legendary ones.
Yeah, but to make a point against myself, I mean, they did sort of break it apart in levels where that did make more sense. Like you had the volcano level, and you basically saw all the fire Pokemon there.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's true.
so I don't necessarily know that that works against it. I just think it's it was a more unique idea, which is a virtue in another way, but I just don't know if it's a virtue in the is it true to Pokemon category for me.
So the way I like to think about this one is, what game, if you took out Pokemon and it was just something else, like what one like can exist, or like which one has the best chance of existing, I guess.
Okay, that's an
Okay, I
interesting
Does that
question. How
does
does
that make
that fit
sense?
into this category, though?
no, your question makes sense, but I'm with Anne. I don't
No,
see
no, because it's
What's
like,
what's the truest to
because
Pokemon?
it's true to Pokemon. Like if
You
you just
get all
take
the
every
Pokemon out of there.
it.
no, but see, I mean, like, if you had Pokemon Snap without Pokemon and you're taking pictures of something else, like, would that still be the same game? Like, can you have a game like that? Is basically what I'm saying.
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. So then, to me, that just says that it's not really true to Pokemon
Okay.
because you can
Okay. So,
easily
but a
because you can
trading
easily
card,
replace it with
you
anything
could do that with
else.
anything.
But you could do that with any of the games.
Yeah. It's like the trading card game could have different.
Yeah, there's it could be Magic the Gathering or
Well,
another or
no, but but it still has to incorporate elements of the actual game. Like, because Pokemon, there's not really anything. It's like you're throwing apple. I mean, Pokemon Snap. You're throwing apples and balls,
yeah.
but that could
Yeah.
that could be anything, and you're taking pictures.
Fine. All right, go ahead.
It, it,
Explain what your reasoning with the other two games.
but yeah, so like in trading card game, it's like it's following the battle rules that were set forth in the true Pokemon games.
Mm,
Um,
okay, I'm starting to get a clearer image of your.
yeah, and then like in Pokemon Go, I feel like that's kind of in the middle because a lot of the elements are pretty unique to Pokemon in terms of like gyms and moves and stuff like that. But then also like I know there's a predecessor to Pokemon Go. I think it was called Ingress or
Ingress,
Egress.
yeah.
Yeah, Ingress, which was essentially Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I don't
You
know. I
know,
don't really know
uh,
enough about that game to say how
yeah, and I
similar it
think
was or
I
not.
think they made a Harry Potter one after it
Yeah,
too.
there's a bunch of
Wasn't there a
uh
zombie thing too with AR?
knockoffs.
I don't know if it was catching, but it was like a zombie AR game, or I don't know if it was like Walking Dead specific, or if it was just zombies or something.
Yeah, I don't know if these games are like Pokemon Go. I know like Ingress, like they use the same like portals for like Pokestops or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's same sort of like backbone, if you will. But I mean,
So it sounds like me and Tom are
I'm
sort of in
saying
agreement.
I'm saying Pokemon trading card game
Yeah, well, yeah. So
first.
we're in agreement on number one at least.
Then then I would say Pokemon Go and then Pokemon Snap.
Yeah.
I'm
If
going
he,
Pokemon Snap,
yeah.
then I think Pokemon Go, then trading card game. I don't
Wow.
know if you think back to I feel like most kids with the cards, well, there wasn't a lot of like
Playing with
battling
the
with the
cards.
actual with the actual rules and
Yeah,
tournaments. I mean, I know people did do that, but
it was just more collecting.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. I mean,
Gotta
yeah, we
collect
have
them all.
so all right, fine. So me and Tom are sort of in agreement on number one, though he did that like confusing Charlie Day meme where he has like the formulas on the whiteboard and is like, and I just sort of just said it, but
Yeah.
to
I
each
wanted
their
to.
All
own
right,
on
that's
that.
good. That's a good discussion. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. Way to show him.
But I just proved it using advanced calculus.
All right. Next we have gameplay. Um
Yeah, so
uh
we mentioned, I mean,
yeah.
they're all very fundamentally different.
Yeah, I mean, trading card game as far as gameplay is concerned, I mean, it's, that being a card game, advanced controls really weren't important to it. Pokemon Go, you use your finger, it's on a mobile app, and Pokemon Snap, you had to use the N64 controls if you played the original version at least. So that's always a strike, but I feel that even the limited need of tr- controls in the trading card game, I just didn't like some of the features of like having to watch all of the animations and also just gameplay of a trading card game itself. We mentioned that there seemed to be a lot of luck involved. Um, and honestly, I think that's why I like Pokemon Snap the best. I mean, I know you guys had some issues with the cameras, but and I think I mentioned in the episode, the N64 error and controls were never completely smooth. But as far as gameplay is concerned, I felt it was that game out of all of these was the most skill based. So that I think is sort of a check in its favor. You kind of avoided the luck in trading card game.
You're really
Sorry.
emphasizing the luck factor in the trading
Yeah.
card game because it took you like 30 hours to beat.
I would, I can't say Pokemon Snap is the most skill based. I mean, Pokemon trading card game is definitely the most luck based because you're drawing cards, which is just the nature of
Yeah.
card games.
Yeah.
But also like it's important to come up with a decent strategy in that game too. You can't
Mhm.
just completely wing your deck.
True.
Yeah, but it was just it's true, but it was really just like a one-off thing. Once you came up with a decent strategy for that deck, that was the game, basically.
But
And in terms of like acquiring and cards and collecting the cards, like I just feel like you could play the game 100 times and you'd basically have all the same cards.
Yeah.
There was nothing special about, oh, I got this card and you have that card, and I'm gonna use this card's like special ability strategically with this trainer card. Like it was really a lot of just like brute forcing.
yeah, and the
Yeah. I
thing
mean,
with
you can. I mean, that's probably
You
what
can,
most
but there's no
people end
need
up
to.
doing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a fair point.
but then there's Pokemon Go, which like I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the gameplay here because like there's like the gameplay of just when you're on your screen trying to catch a Pokemon, you don't battle them, you don't fight them, you just kind of try to throw the Pokeball in the circle, maybe give them a berry.
So
Eh,
like the thing with this being a mobile game is like these mobile games are always trying to just give you so much stuff to do so that you just keep spending money on it and coming back to it.
Yeah, but there's
Um,
also like very little skill involved, either in strategy like trading card game
yeah,
or more physical dexterity skills like in Pokemon Snap and just like, more quick
you don't like
movements.
those battlings where you're just tapping the heck out of the screen.
Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, look,
No, it's not. I'm
gameplay.
kidding. It's not skill.
Yeah, I know. Gameplay is like, the largest skill element of gameplay in Pokemon Go is like trying to get a curve on your Pokeball throw so that it like maybe has a percentage more chance of catching the Pokemon. And then, there's a little strategy about like, do I waste a great ball on this Pokemon instead of a regular Pokeball? But I mean,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
is strategy to like battling the gyms and especially the raids. I talked a little bit about this in the episode. There's these specifically about raids. There's raid guides based on which move the Pokemon should have, and of course based on like the type. advantage, and then so
Yeah,
there
I
is some
know,
skill
but
in that sense. Like, okay, this is the legendary raid this month. I should be powering up these Pokemon. I should be using my HMs or TMs or whatever to ensure they have these moves.
yeah, I mean, I feel like
But
if
I
you
agree
have
with you.
enough
This,
people
But
on your team, that's all sort of irrelevant and moot.
yeah, to me that's the same along the lines as like, finding that great trainer card and Pokemon power combination. It's like, yeah, you can do it, but
yeah.
more
I
often
mean,
than not, you don't
look,
need to
I
do it.
guess I mean there's a lot of brute forcing in Pokemon Go too, but the quicker you beat a raid or the more damage that you do, you get more Premier Balls to try to catch the raid Pokemon.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, when there's raids going on, like you might do 10 in a day, so it doesn't. What's the difference if you catch 5 legendaries or 4 legendaries? I guess the
Yeah,
difference is 1 legendary, but
math. Um,
I want
but
to circle back to Pokemon Snap if that's all right.
yeah, go ahead.
Just like something that we mentioned during the episode about going for high scores. Like I think that's a cool element in that game that really isn't present in the others.
Yeah, I think you're kind of bleeding into replay value, which it will be the next thing we discuss. But I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, as far
Well,
as
there's none of
gameplay,
that in trading card
But that's
games.
part of the gameplay too. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah,
but as far as gameplay in like Pokemon Go, I mean, do we count the walking element of you physically
yeah,
walking outside as part of it? So I mean,
I do.
that's
oh,
a
so then it's the worst.
yeah. I have to go outside. Um, I think eh,
To me, it is. You walk around, you're
no,
discovering things in your
to me.
neighborhood.
To me, it's definitely part of the gameplay. I don't know that it's always a positive. If you want to play and it's like 2 in the morning and you just don't want to be walking around in the pitch black at night, like it's sort of like, I can't play that, I guess.
Well, no, I think that's the time when you do what I was talking about. You're managing your Pokemon and maybe leveling. Now you're spending the time to level them up and to, strategize. It's almost like if it's an RPG game. And sometimes you're out there and you're discovering and you're battling, and other times you're kind of in the menus, like powering up and deciding what to level up.
The other thing we mentioned in the episode regarding Pokemon Go is the sort of like the inventory system, and how we thought maybe there could be more slots for Pokemon that you didn't have to spend the in-game currency on, especially as they increase the amount of Pokemon for different generations and things like that. So again, one of you mentioned it's a mobile game. They're gonna, Tom, I think did. They're gonna try to get you to spend money. The other thing I don't like about, and I think this fits into gameplay with a game like Pokemon Go is like there's really never an end game. It's just like you play until you're bored with it, and then that's it. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I don't know.
No, I mean it's like sports games. You can play
Yeah.
for eternity, and they're the best types of games. So they're really fun. So I don't often categorize the not having a true end as a negative for gameplay. That's my opinion anyway. But so Tom, you mentioned like how in Pokemon Snap, the sort of competitive scene of trying to get the highest score. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of that in Pokemon Go too, like a race to the highest uh trainer level or something. It was like a point of like pride or something. Oh,
Yeah,
you're level 19, I'm level 20.
I guess. I don't know. To me, that's like if you both start playing Final Fantasy VII at the same time, it's like, what level are you? It's like, oh, yeah, I'm level 5. I don't know. Racing to get a level just isn't really the same as competing for a high score.
Yeah, I guess you could say that about pretty much any game then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's something you guys want to add to gameplay category, I mean,
I do want to add one thing on the trading card game, and I think maybe we touched on it a little bit about talking about the luck, but I it was just like I felt like I was sleepwalking through the game. There's like absolutely no penalty for losing, and just the very far majority of the matches were just so uncompetitive. either in my favor or against me. And there was very few matches where it was like a tight match and you didn't know who was going to win. And so it was just kind of too casual and light. Like it's just quite uncompetitive, I felt.
I mean, I think you could definitely say that about Pokemon Go.
No. I I I no, there's a lot of times playing when I play Pokemon Go where I was like angry or upset. You know, maybe you can encounter a rare Pokemon and it flees, or especially during raids, it was very frustrating a lot of times.
Yeah, but I feel like that's sort of random too a lot. I mean, and like the raids, it's like you kind of knew if you didn't have enough people, you were gonna lose, and if you had enough people, you were gonna win. And there's
It's
Yeah,
not
otherwise,
it's not
and
just
it's
that
also
though.
catching the Pokemon and
Yeah,
or
that was the part that always
yeah.
was hard for me. Like, you complete the raid, and then it's not a guarantee that you're going to even get the Pokemon that you raided
yeah.
for.
I mean, it's just tough because it's like so much of the actual game of Pokemon Go to me was just like not that competitive and not that interesting gameplay wise. But then you add the augmented reality and the walking and the being outside and then it's like, okay, I kind of get it. But I'm going with Pokemon Snap as my number one. I feel it was the most skill based out of the three games. Based on your comments, I could probably go with Pokemon Go as number two. And trading card game, I'm not a big fan of the luck factor. And I recently played another card based game, and I just didn't feel the luck factor was as big a deal. I mean, luck factor is always a deal with with card games to an extent, but I felt it was a little too much in trading card game. And then there was just other gameplay elements of it that I didn't like, such as it just took long to get through battles because of the animations or some of the text and stuff. And um, so that's my ranking of this category.
Yeah, I hear you about the point about Pokemon Snap being the most skill involved. But I will say, and maybe this is more towards strategy and less towards skill, but like people I knew that I played Pokemon Go with, like just to see the Pokemon that they were using in raids was just so very, suboptimal and inefficient. Whereas I feel like a lot of these same people could have picked up Pokemon Snap and played it basically just as well as I played it. And I didn't play it to be super competitive and get highest scores, but
Mm.
so I don't know, just to push back on what you're saying a little bit. So having said that, I think I'm gonna give Pokemon Go the nod here. It's just so like wide ranging, and I don't know, I played lots and lots of hours on it, so it had me, you know, keep coming back for more. And then I'd go Pokemon Snap in the middle, and the real reason why is because trading card game has to be last for me. Just kind of what I've just kind of said a couple of moments ago.
All right, Tom, do you have a ranking?
Yeah, I mean, I did like all these games, so it was kind of hard. I thought they all had fun and fun gameplay elements in their own ways, but I hinted at it before. I would put Pokemon Snap first just because of the more competitive nature of it. And then probably Pokemon Go after that. Uh, I mean, I know you guys seem to like not really like the trading card game a lot, or at least as much as I do. But so I didn't want to put it last in terms for gameplay, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
The end of that discussion kind of segues nicely into the next category we have, which is replay value. We started talking about it a little bit with mentioning the competitive sort of rankings and trying to get higher scores with
Yeah, but
Pokemon Snap.
it's not even competing against other people. It's sometimes just trying to best yourself, which is
Yeah, yeah, no,
fun.
that's true. And replay value doesn't necessarily mean just playing other people, but like,
No, it
look,
doesn't mean that at all.
yeah, no, I know, but that is part of it. And like, when you have a game like Pokemon Snap, let's say, where you can improve your scores to yourself or improve them as far as this community is concerned, and to try to best other people and all of that. I mean, I think that adds a good element of replay value to a game. On the other hand, you have a game like Pokemon Go where it's like you can play for, and I forgot our hours counts, but like Pete had like, I don't know, 7 million hours of gameplay. So I mean, I guess you could say it had good replay value.
It's hard to say with a game like that because it doesn't really end, so
Yeah.
you
It
can't
only
really
ends when you get
technically
bored of it.
replay it.
This is our obligatory. Let's define what replay value is.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
has to come up every time. And it's a different definition every time.
Well, I mean, look, overall with Pokemon, you have that gotta catch them all, that collect them all kind of element to it. And we mentioned in the episode, I didn't get photos of all of the Pokemon. We all had a lot. I think I think Pete maybe had all of them, but me and Tom had like 4 or 5 less than all of them. Um, so there's not only the replay value in trying to better your photography so that you better your scores, but there's also the getting all photos of all of the Pokemon, and some you have to do special tricks to get them to appear and all of that, which is
Yeah, they didn't
probably,
know
you
they
know,
didn't always make it so obvious, which I liked.
yeah, which we probably should have discussed in gameplay, but Tommy and you picked it first anyway, so that would have just added to it, I feel. Um, but
Yeah,
trading.
that definitely adds to the replay value where you would want to play a level 10 times and see if you could discover anything new.
And I think by not dragging out each level in Pokemon Snap, I feel like this is gonna start an argument, but like I feel that lends to the replay value because you're not, not every level takes 10 hours where you have to then to play it again, play another 10 hours of that level. You finish it in 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is, and then you play it again, and you play it again, and then you play it again, and it's like not so burdensome to keep playing the same level over and over again.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be a huge argument, at least from me.
Well,
But
it just sort of harkens back to one of the other
yeah,
Brodowns where I was like, where you guys were accusing me
I
of
think
saying like
it was
it's
about
not good.
Donkey Kong because
Oh, right,
you
yeah,
didn't have to you didn't have to complete nearly 100% of the tasks,
right.
so you were classifying that as replay. But anyway, here, regardless of how short or long the duration of the levels are, you really aren't meant to see everything in one playthrough of the level. Just in a lot of instances, if you're looking left, then
Yeah,
you can't be looking right and you're going to
right.
miss something.
Yeah, I mean the game even forces you to replay levels, like when you have
A
to collect
couple
the
of times.
signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get items like the Pokeflute later on in the game that affect
Yeah, but
what
see,
you
I
can
wouldn't.
do in earlier episodes,
But see,
earlier levels.
I wouldn't consider that replay value because that's part of the core game.
Fine. But I think everything up
Yeah, I agree
until
with Tom
that
on that one.
comment, I think everything up until that comment can be considered actual replay value. All right, and that's
Yeah,
just Pokemon
yeah,
Snap.
yeah.
Let's talk about replay value with the other games.
Yeah, so in trading card game, see, this is like more self-imposed replay value where you can, you know, say you want to stick to a certain strategy for this playthrough, or you want to prioritize psychic deck this time around, you
Mhm.
know.
I mean, and it also has a collect them all element because they do have a listing of the cards, and people do want to collect all of the cards. Whether they be the Pokemon or the other sort of item cards that you get. So I mean, there's replay value to that as well because you're not necessarily going to get every Pokemon card in one playthrough.
Yeah, aside from the collecting, and it's not like there wasn't a ton of cards to collect. Like
Hmm.
by the time you completed the game, you probably had 90% of the cards, you know? And then so
Hmm.
at the end of the game, I forget what they called it now, but they had that like dual machine thing
Yeah, yeah.
where it would like randomize the opponents and like that's really no motivation to play.
Well, to
Um
to you, I mean, and to me, but like
and
others
to
might,
Tom.
yeah, others might disagree. Um,
Well,
there
yeah.
was the thing
Let's
which
not
I
have
think,
any discussion because
No, I know. I'm
What
trying
holds
to.
true to us might not hold true to somebody else. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, it's true. We're the stars of this podcast, so I guess that's what matters. But we're trying to be objective too, and like there is a replay.
yeah,
All
it's
three of
true.
these games have replay value, so it's a good discussion to have. When discussing the three in a comparison way. And then there's Pokemon Go, which is by its nature very repetitive, and you
Yeah,
replay
because
it,
it's a
but
mobile game.
yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can necessarily classify it as like, well, I turn it on a lot when I go for a walk, so that's replay value.
No, that's not replay value.
It's just playing the game. I
Yeah,
mean, because
exactly.
a game lasts forever doesn't mean it's replay value. If anything, that would work against it,
Right.
I think.
Are you arguing against yourself right now?
No, but it's more clear with Pokemon Go.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is even relevant to this discussion, but I feel with Pokemon Go, like at least this is how I felt when once I stopped for a few months, even if I thought about it and wanted to like get started again, it was so hard to get back into once you stop. And I know this isn't really replaying the game because, like we said, the game never ends. But I don't know, it's a strike against it for me, I guess. I
Yeah.
just feel like, oh no, I've missed all these new features. I've missed all these Pokemon that were added. Like it's just I don't want to even get re-involved in it. All
That's a
right,
good
by,
point.
by your blank stares, it's like it's. I
No,
guess it wasn't a relevant comment.
Well, I'm trying to like, because part of it is just playing, but it's like, would you consider that you go to the same Pokemon stops over and over again, replay value?
I
I
wouldn't really.
I don't know, but I do think we should. I think it's more complicated than saying the game never ends, so you can't replay it. I
Yeah.
think it's more nuanced than that. But
Yeah, I mean,
I like
like
where your head's at.
you can make that argument as far as like Pete, me and you like MLB the Show. So like you can make that argument that it's just like, okay, you're just keep playing games. You're not like playing replay value. And that let's just go with the online games or like your regular season games, not all of the other stuff like the storylines and the home run derby, but like you can replay it in the sense like, okay, I'm gonna build a team of I don't know, all lefties and and I'm gonna build a team of all Cincinnati Reds and so like there's an element of replay there, even in a sports game where you wouldn't otherwise classify it as that, I would think. So I don't know that, and regardless of what one thinks of that
Argument.
comparison
Yeah.
argument, I still think it's a better argument than being able to argue that Pokemon Go has good replay value. But you know what I'm saying? It's like
No, I don't.
it's like a sports
I lost
game.
your train of thought in that
All
last
right, so let me see if I can
part
explain it. A
with
sports
Pokemon
game
Go.
is a game that I think a lot of people would say doesn't have replay
Yes.
value with
Yes.
the way that we're sort of implying it would, because it's just like you're kind of just continuing it on forever and ever. You're not really ending.
Yeah.
But I feel I gave examples as to why there is a certain level of replayability even in sports games. Whereas in Pokemon Go, you're not like
Oh, I see.
using different Pokemon to catch certain Pokemon. Like in trading card game, like Tom said, all right, I'm gonna try to beat the game with a psychic deck the whole game through, rather than just sort of mixing and matching against weaknesses of types and strengths of types and anything like that. With Pokemon Go, you really don't have that at all.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're not really doing anything different. Like, there's no room for player expression, really, or
Yeah.
experimentation,
And like,
aside from like who you choose to use for a raid. But it's like you're just gonna pick your strongest Pokemon anyway. So
right, you like, because like types don't even matter in Pokemon Go, right?
I
Yeah,
think
they
they do.
matter. Yeah.
Oh, they do? Oh, my
Yeah.
bad. So, I mean, you have that, but I don't know.
You're the
It's
type of person I was talking about who I would make fun of based on the Pokemon they were using in certain raids.
well, yeah, right. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think you could
So
kind of tell by my argument, even though I'm trying here for Pokemon Go, that's last for me. I'm not trying to short circuit the discussion. If you guys have more to say on replay value with any of these three games, go ahead. But I'm going
I
Pokemon
don't.
Snap, Pokemon Trading Card Game, Pokemon Go.
This is this does feel to me a little bit like the Donkey Kong 64 argument, whereas like Pokemon Go is just so robust. There's 1,000 Pokemon and it's never ending, so there's no replay value because you can't replay a game that doesn't end.
Yeah, but if
But
I make the argument that there is a lot of replay value because you keep going back to it and trying to keep doing new things, then Tom, if not both of you, are gonna make fun of me saying that. So it's
then it
like,
becomes so what is the longest game
yeah. So
category? No, no, okay. But I just wanted to throw it out there. But I am also inclined to put Pokemon Go last in this category. As
I
far as the
think,
other two,
yeah, I think its deficiency in this category is made up in other categories, like perhaps the next one we will discuss. But
yeah, yeah. For me, like really, there's very little replay value in trading card game unless you're self-imposing the scenarios that like Tom laid out, which you could do in a well, okay. We made the argument you can't really do that in Pokemon Go, but you could do that in a lot of games. Um, so to me, Pokemon Snap gives the best replay value of the three games, clearly.
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's unanimous.
Good discussion, but I'm glad I was able to convince you, Pete, that I was correct.
That's a first.
All right, we have before conclusions, what we have is our last category in the Brodown for this Pokemon spin-off game, and just like to take a minute here to encourage the listeners to go on our X and Instagram accounts at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles to check out our content there. And again, visit us at brothersandbossbattles.com and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right. This last substantive category we have for the Pokemon spin-off Brodown is effect on the gaming community. I feel like most of our Pokemon Go episode was discussing the effect on the not just the gaming community, but just community. Um, but I do think we have two other games that hold their own even in a category like this. Just being sort of innovative. Pokemon Snap taking an obscure character from the cartoon and turning it into a pretty popular game with unique gameplay and bolstering that Pokemon lore and popularity. And then Pokemon trading card game, which was, was really a pretty popular game on the Game Boy Color, and yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
and
so
innovative, and yeah,
I don't really want to spend too much time on this one. I mean, to me, Pokemon Go has to be first, and it just impact across everywhere and everyone.
yeah, it was culturally very big.
Yeah, exactly. And there were so many copies of it trying to get in on its popularity, its success.
I mean, so do you did I mean, they put this on mobile, so if it was halfway decent, it was going to have sort of the widest appeal, just because it was going to be available to people that don't play consoles or on PC or anything like that. Um, does that detract at all
No,
from it, or does it, or was it?
I don't know. I mean, I mean, I'm not an expert on this subject, but I could name a couple of mobile games that are incredibly popular. I
Yeah,
can't, but
exactly.
yeah, but there's probably hundreds of thousands of mobile games, and they're also on mobile, and
They're not
no one's ever
popular.
heard of them because they're not good.
Hmm. We talked about Pokemon Go just with its, you know, it was,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, if
society talked about it and governments
yeah,
talked about it, and there was laws
yeah,
passed regarding it, and
Yeah, but does that mean necessarily that it did anything for gaming? Like,
yeah,
did
I mean,
Pokemon Go do anything to advance gaming?
well, the popularity. I think the fact that there's so many copies says something about its impact.
But did
Like
it? Yeah, go ahead. I was
we
gonna say,
mentioned
but did it?
the Harry Potter game or
Yeah,
whatever.
but were
Or
any of those popular? It's like, you had Super Mario Brothers for the NES, like sort of revolutionized gaming because of everything that came after it. But you had all these spin-off, like I never played the Harry Potter game. I have not played another augmented reality game other than Pokemon Go on my mobile device.
yeah, me neither. I'm sure some of those made a good amount of money.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know that to be true either, but I'd be very surprised
Yeah,
if it wasn't true.
but it's not really about like whether it was commercially successful. Like that's not really.
I think I don't know. I think if a bunch of people race to copy you, then that says something about your impact on the gaming
Well,
community.
but was
Yeah,
it
but
just
I don't
because
know.
it hadn't been done before? And then there's always copiers to new things because
Okay.
people try to
So
jump
if
on
the
the.
first of its kind, then that's revolutionary. That's impact on the gaming world.
Yeah, but
That's the
I don't know.
definition.
But if
Pokemon
you're,
Snap was too.
yeah, and if you're a
Like,
one, if
is
you're a
anyone
Well,
gonna be?
one-off,
Is anyone gonna be? I don't know. Is there gonna be games like Pokemon Go in 20 years from now? Like, are people gonna want to play
I
that?
think so. And I think they're going to be wearing glasses and
so
it's
like
going to be like you're in the game.
like VR.
Yeah, but
I
in
thought
a
you were
real
gonna go
space.
there, that this maybe like sort of spurred more VR stuff, but I don't think it really did. Yeah, I think
Nah,
VR's been in the work. But Tom, to sort of push back on you a little bit, I mean, have there been other sort of like big photography based games? Like,
no, there have not.
Yeah, and I don't know if Pokemon Snap was the first photography game. As you recall, it originally
it was
was being developed. Yeah,
like a
yeah,
regular
a
photography
nature,
game.
Yeah,
a
yeah,
nature
yeah.
photography. I mean, I think Pokemon Snap was, maybe this is too strong a word, but revolutionary in some ways.
Hmm. I did too.
So I don't
Yeah,
want to like
I,
poo-poo that.
I would even say it was more revolutionary to the gaming community than Pokemon Go was. Pokemon Go was more revolutionary to the world at large, but
Yeah, I
What
mean,
was revolutionary to the gaming community about Pokemon Snap?
well, I mean, we talked about it. The first 3D Pokemon,
Yeah, okay.
Pokemon's huge. A point we've all made in these
Yeah, but
past three
if
episodes,
Pokemon
three and a
Snap
half
never
episodes.
existed, Pokemon would be just as huge as it is today.
Do you not feel it would be as huge without Pokemon Go? Pokemon, I mean.
I think you could make that argument. Yes. Because there's people who didn't, you know, say boo about Pokemon or playing Pokemon.
it would be interesting to see like, I mean, this is obviously impossible data to collect, but like people who were brought into the Pokemon world from Pokemon Go, and are they still like, did it actually inspire them to go out and be like an actual Pokemon fan and play the other games, or like has their association with Pokemon already died out at this point?
I mean, I would think the latter. And I would think the people who played Pokemon Go, which is probably a lot of people that stuck with gaming, at least, if we're in a impact on the gaming community category, were probably Pokemon fans from the other games prior to playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
I
I would say
doubt
that
that.
the people that Pokemon Go brought in who aren't already fans probably are not playing Pokemon Go anymore and are playing Candy Crush and
Yeah, and they're
Flappy
also
Bird
not
copies.
playing console games or anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. But I mean,
But
again, like it's
are
impossible
those
to really say
people
that.
are
Yeah,
those people having, having kids and they see a Snorlax blanket and now maybe they're going to buy a Snorlax blanket?
Yeah, I mean, I
I
think
mean,
that's a
I'll
good
be,
point too.
a
Look,
lot of them are not, obviously, but was there some small percentage that are still consuming Pokemon in some way, whereas maybe they wouldn't have had they not gotten into Pokemon Go?
yeah, I mean, as much as it pains me to say, I think I have to agree. I think I have to go with Pete's ranking as Pokemon Go is number one. So, I applaud Tom for not doing that and picking and making a good argument to the contrary. I mean,
Well,
But
yeah, I mean, I made the argument, but
oh,
it's more just playing devil's advocate because like I'm not completely sold that this is. I mean, again, there's no question that Pokemon Go was the biggest,
Mhm.
had the
Uh,
biggest effect on the world. Like it was the most
mhm.
popular and it brought in the most players because it was the most accessible. You
Yeah,
know, not a billion people didn't have an N64.
right.
It's not just because it was most accessible. If Pokemon Snap was on mobile, not as many people would have played Pokemon Snap as they played Pokemon Go. There's no question about that.
I don't
You could
know.
go out
I
and
think if
walk
you were able
around
to
and catch a
take,
Pokemon in the park across the street from your house. There was people who did not care about Pokemon for 20 years were not going to play Pokemon Snap on their iPhone.
I don't know about that. I mean,
Not as many.
do
So
you
yeah,
think if Pokemon Snap was go out and basically Pokemon Go, but snap a picture of it and call it Pokemon Snap?
okay, well,
I
if
mean,
that was yes, but
well,
then
you can't
now
be
you're
on.
changing the game. Now you're using AR technology.
Well,
You're walking around. You're not sitting in front of a screen.
I
That's
think
a
if
different
you're,
game.
I think if you're on rails on your phone, sitting on the train, going to work, and you're essentially playing Pokemon Snap on your phone, and you could move it with your finger to go look behind you, and you press, your camera button to take a photo of it. I think that would do well. I
That's
think
that I
that might
agree. That's
do
a popular
better.
game.
I think that
No,
might do better than Pokemon Go because you don't have to walk around.
there is zero chance that would do better than Pokemon Go. Do you know how many people who didn't care about video games, didn't care about Pokemon, were playing this game?
But why would it be
Because
different?
you're not
What?
just it's not a video game. You're
Yeah.
going out into the real world
Oh,
and doing things and
don't
interacting.
don't say that. We can't include it on our video game podcast then.
Well, I mean, we did say that it was a unique kind of
I know.
thing for us. But yeah, I mean, I do agree that it's
Stay tuned next week when we review Monopoly.
The board game. Um,
I think, Tom, I'm curious to hear your opinion. I think it's laughable to think Pokemon Snap on your iPhone, not AR, just seemed on your screen would have done better than Pokemon Go in terms of users and profit.
yeah. I mean, I don't know about better. It's
I don't
just
think I said better. I
But
just
worse.
yeah, probably.
But
But
if
I
you
don't know.
didn't say
Like,
better,
do
then what the
people
heck is the
people
argument?
really wanted to go out and walk around? Why?
you
Because it was
couldn't do
different than
that without
anything they've
Pokemon
experienced.
Go.
No, they wanted to go out, walk around, and catch Pokemon.
Ah,
Put their Pokemon in a gym
Yeah,
and
I don't
say,
know. I
"Oh,
feel like those people who wanted to that died out after like 3 weeks.
what are you suggesting then? What did the people who kept playing the game, what did they want?"
well, they liked Pokemon
Yeah.
and liked it before Pokemon Go. Probably like it after Pokemon Go, or probably playing whatever generation they're up to now of the mainline games. I
And
think
the thing about mobile gaming is that it's meant to be addicting. So like,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure some of these people who are going to gyms are like, oh, all right, let me go walk over there now and put my Pokemon in just because I'm addicted to getting these coins so that I can buy this new hat for my avatar.
I think you're underestimating the population of people who picked up Pokemon Go just because it was different, because it was not a traditional video game and actually stuck with it. It's not the
Yeah,
majority of
I
players.
probably am underestimating it.
The majority of Pokemon Go players are Pokemon fans, of course.
Mhm.
But to think Pokemon Snap would have attracted as many
But
non-Pokemon fans
see, I
is
want to
not
know the
true.
number of people those people who you were saying who were, whatever, drawn to the game, who weren't Pokemon fans because it was something different. I want to know how many of those people stayed with it for more than 2 months. I don't think we'll ever get to that number,
I
but
think a lot of people. I don't know.
well, I think not a
Go
lot of
play the
people.
Harry Potter photography game. Oh wait, there is none because that wouldn't have done as well.
Is the Harry Potter augmented reality game even supported anymore? I've not heard of one person who has played that game. Literally, I'm not being facetious.
I don't know. I mean, it came out years ago. Now I haven't played it once. I have no idea where it stands now.
I don't know. Okay. Despite what I said, I think we're all in agreement that Pokemon Go should be first here in this category. I don't
Tom,
think it's as
do you agree with
simple
that?
as you mentioned,
Yeah,
as you seem to think, Pete. That's
yeah,
sort of the
yeah,
point of our point here. And the other two games I feel are just sort of like running neck and neck. I would give the nod slightly to Pokemon Snap just because it was more unique. Um, Pokemon trading card game was very much based off of the trading card game or followed the
Yeah,
trading game.
I feel like the answer to this question is probably not a lot, but I wonder how many people got into the actual trading card game
Mhm.
because of the video game trading card game. I'm thinking probably not a lot.
I think, like you said, it's probably true that the cards were more of a collector's item than a let's battle kind of a thing, especially since
yeah.
the games are already out at that point.
I feel like this game could have kind of inspired people to learn the rules and how to actually battle with the cards that they were collecting.
Yeah, and I'm sure a small percentage of people that it did have that effect on.
So do you guys
So
go with trading card games number two?
no, for me, trading card game is last. I mean, Pokemon Snap with the photography, that's amazing.
Are you being
And
sarcastic?
innovative and
If
everyone.
only,
No, no, no.
if
Well,
only you
yes,
can
but
do that with your smartphone.
That would have
man,
really taken the world by storm. They would have been making laws and rules regarding that. All right, and that brings us to our conclusion section where we have to sort of tally our votes and our comments from the prior categories and see which one of these wins the Pokemon spin-off Brodown. All right. So just to kind of go through some of the major topics, effect on the gaming community, we kind of all agreed to different extents that Pokemon Go probably is number one in that category. Um, Replay value, I think we made the case for Pokemon Snap. Uh, True to Pokemon, what did we go with? We kind of said the trading card game number one. Well, actually, Pete, I
I think
think you picked the Snap, and Tom and I
yeah,
picked trading card game.
yeah,
Um, Gameplay, I know I picked Snap as my number one.
yeah. There was some diversity there. The music, I think we all agreed, music and sound was the trading card game,
Yes.
right? This is gonna be a good one. I'm curious to hear what you guys conclude.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, and I think my picks in these categories, especially in the bigger ones, where there was more divergence in thought, um, my listing is Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Trading Card Game in that order. I just don't think that, in my opinion, Trading Card Game did well enough in any of these categories other than really music to warrant putting it ahead of the others. And while I had some issues with Pokemon Go outside of its obvious lead in effect on the gaming community, I don't think that superseded the positives of Pokemon Snap and many of the other categories. Anyone?
Yeah, I'll go. This was hard. This was hard for me because I actually liked all these games. Um, which may have not been clear from the previous hour or so, but um, yeah. So I think I'm gonna go with. I think I'm gonna see. I can't even make the decision now because I feel like they're
I
just so
feel like
close.
you be objective. Go through your categories and go through your like list rankings in your cat. I mean, you don't have to like spell them out again to the
Yeah, yeah,
audience, but like
yeah. It's close. I think I'm gonna go with Pokemon Snap number one, and then Pokemon Go number 2, and then trading card game as the third, bringing it up the rear.
That
Yeah.
was identical to Anne, right?
Yeah, that was my
It was, yeah. Again, like really close. They all brought really unique takes on the Pokemon world, which was kind of what we're exploring through this category.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think Pokemon trading card game can really use maybe not a sequel, but and we kind of touched on this on the episode about that game specifically, but some of these new like a new interface and stuff like that, I think could do it well. Uh, which they already kind of did, so I would maybe recommend checking that out. But um,
That's
yeah,
online.
online, yeah,
Yeah.
and they have apps for your phone as well. So
Oh, mobile trading card game.
and it has 300 trillion consecutive or concurrent users. No,
That's not true.
it doesn't.
Yeah. It doesn't. All right. Is that it?
Yeah, Pete, it's gonna be
Cool.
hard. If you have a different order, it's gonna be hard to overcome Pokemon Snap, but let's see what you have and if it
Yeah,
does.
so the audience could probably gather trading card game is going to be last for me, and it's not that it was an awful game.
No.
Um,
Yeah, it's not like some of the other Brodowns we've had where
yeah, it was
like
like
I agree with Tom. None of these games I don't know if I want to say I liked it, all of them. I didn't dislike any of them. Let me put it that way.
Ooh, a double negative, nice.
yeah. So the trading card game it did a lot of things well. But
Yeah,
I also had
music,
yeah
connection to the Pokemon lore.
yeah exactly, and just sort of uh, it's a good initiation into the trading card game. Um, but there's also things that weren't done so well. My biggest problem was just the lack of competitiveness throughout the game for most of it. So, anyways, that's number one.
You mean
I
number
mean,
three?
that's number three.
Firstly,
One,
it's number three.
yes. Now, I really, really like Pokemon Go and Pokemon Snap. I think they're both wonderful games that everyone should play. With that being said, we'll give it a clean sweep, and Pokemon Snap is my number one.
Oh,
Wow, what a shock.
I am shocked, and I wonder if any of the audience is shocked. But I am shocked. I thought you were gonna go Pokemon Go. Glad we were
Yeah,
able to bring you to our fold.
I guess my biggest deciding factor was that Pokemon Go certainly does feel like too much of a grind at times. Um,
Yeah,
and like
points that were
just
made in the episode. Yeah.
and yeah, just cumbersome and stuff. So, but I really, really think that's a wonderful game.
All right, there you have it. A clean sweep for first and second place in our Pokemon spin-off Brodown. Congratulations to winner Pokemon Snap and the runner-up Pokemon Go. For any audience members that haven't played those games, go ahead, especially if you're a Pokemon fan. As we mentioned in our recommendations in the episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to Pete and Tom for a good discussion in this Brodown. Thanks to my nephews Nick and Jake for their help with the Pokemon Go last episode. Catch us in a couple of weeks for our new category that we'll be discussing.
What will it be?
People will have to wait and find out. Visit us on our website at brothersandbossbattles.com. Visit us on our Instagram and X accounts at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.